A torrential downpour slapped my face as my son seized in my arms. Suddenly, a black Rolls-Royce cut through the gridlocked traffic and stopped directly in front of me. My father stepped out, his gaze sharp. "Why are you taking a city bus? Where is the Escalade I sent you?" My knees went weak as I whispered that my husband had sold it behind my back. My father wasn't angry. He simply took out his phone. And before the story begins, please write in the comments where you all are watching this story from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can continue to grow and bring you even more compelling stories. The wall clock showed it was the dead of night. The sound of the clock's ticking seemed to race against the pounding of Grace Montgomery's heart. Outside, the wind howled, a sign that the storm had not yet passed. But inside the cramped, stuffy apartment, the atmosphere felt even more menacing. In Grace's embrace, the small body of Leo, her 3-year-old son, shivered violently. The heat from the child's body felt like a hot coal against Grace's cold skin. She had just checked the digital thermometer she'd slipped under his arm. The number on the small screen made Grace's knees buckle, 103.6 degrees Fahrenheit. "Leo, sweetheart, hold on. Mommy will get some medicine," Grace whispered, her voice trembling. She gently laid Leo down on the foam mattress, its fitted sheet faded and worn. Leo whimpered softly, his eyes squeezed shut, his breathing heavy and ragged. Grace hurried to the medicine box on top of a plastic dresser. Empty. The bottle of children's fever reducer had been dry for 2 days. She squeezed the plastic bottle in despair. Grace had forgotten to buy more because her weekly grocery money had been cut again by her mother-in-law. With hesitant steps, Grace looked toward the living room. The blue glow from a computer monitor was the only source of light in the room. There, her husband, Ryan Gallagher, sat with large headphones covering his ears. His fingers danced nimbly across the keyboard. Occasionally, he would shout, "Push left! Push left!" God, this support is trash! Grace took a deep breath, gathering what little courage she had left. She knew this was not the right time, but her son's life was at stake. She walked closer, gently tapping his shoulder. "Ryan," Grace called softly. No response. Ryan was still engrossed in slaughtering enemies in his virtual world. "Ryan!" Grace tapped harder, this time with a slight shake. Ryan flinched. He ripped off his headset, his face red with annoyance at being disturbed during a crucial moment in his game. "What is it, Grace? Can't you see I'm in a ranked match?" "My rank could drop because you startled me," he snapped harshly, his voice echoing in the small apartment. Grace swallowed hard, holding back the tears that threatened to spill. "Ryan, Leo has a high fever, almost 104. We're out of medicine. I just need $50, Ryan. I'm going to run to the 24-hour pharmacy down the block." Ryan scoffed, his eyes glancing back at the monitor. "Money, money, always money. I feel like I just gave you grocery money. That was a week ago, Ryan, and your mother took half of it for her book club dues," Grace replied, trying to remain calm though her heart ached. "Please, Ryan, this is for our son. He could have another seizure if he doesn't get medicine now." Ryan fumbled in the pocket of his shorts and pulled out a thin leather wallet. He opened it. There was only a $2 bill and a few receipts from a convenience store. He tossed the wallet onto the desk. "See for yourself." Empty. "You know Mom handles my direct deposit," Ryan said nonchalantly, as if it were a normal thing for a head of household. "Besides, you're being dramatic. It's probably just a normal fever. Just give him a sponge bath with lukewarm water. This isn't a normal fever, Ryan." "He's shivering." Grace's voice rose, her fear for her son's safety overpowering her fear of her husband. "Then ask Mom. Call her right now, Ryan. Ask her to transfer a little money." "Are you crazy? Waking Mom up at this hour?" "She'd kill me in the morning." Ryan put his headphones back on. "Now stop bothering me. Just give him a sponge bath. If he's still hot in the morning, we'll figure something out." Ryan sank back into his world, leaving Grace standing frozen, her heart shattered. Grace stared at her husband's back, the man who had once promised her father he would treat her like a queen. Now, that same man wouldn't even turn his head while his own flesh and blood was fighting for his life. Grace turned and went back to the bedroom. She grabbed a small basin, filled it with tap water, and tore a piece from an old t-shirt to use as a compress. As she placed the damp cloth on Leo's forehead, Grace's tears finally fell. She cried silently, afraid her sobs would wake the suffering child. That night felt endless, and Grace felt completely alone in the world. The morning sun had not yet fully risen. The New York sky was still a deep shade of gray. The remnants of last night's rain hung in the air. Grace hadn't slept a wink. Her eyes were swollen, her body ached from sitting up all night, holding Leo and constantly changing the compress. Leo's fever had dropped slightly, but it was still 101. The boy looked limp, his face pale, and he refused to drink his milk. Grace knew she couldn't wait. She had to take Leo to a doctor. A mother's intuition told her something was seriously wrong. At 6 a.m., Grace emerged from the bedroom, already dressed in simple clothes, a plain t-shirt and slightly worn pants. She held Leo, who was wrapped in a thick blanket. At the small dining table in the corner, her mother-in-law, Sharon, was enjoying a cup of hot tea while flipping through an old-fashioned magazine. Ryan was still snoring in the next room. Sharon glanced briefly at Grace, her gaze sweeping from head to toe with a look of disdain. There was no question of, "Is my grandson sick?" or "Where are you going so early?" "Sharon," Grace began softly. She didn't want to argue. She just needed a solution. "Leo still has a fever. I'm going to take him to the urgent care clinic nearby. Can I borrow $100? You can take it out of Ryan's paycheck, I don't mind." Sharon set her teacup down with a loud clink. She stared at Grace with a sharp glare, one of her perfectly drawn eyebrows raised. "Borrow? Grace? Grace, are you my daughter-in-law or a beggar?" "Every day it's the same tune, always asking for money," Sharon said, her cynical tone cutting like a knife. "Ryan's salary for this month is already gone. I used it yesterday to get the central air fixed in my room and to pay the homeowners association fee. Besides, you're a rich man's daughter." "You don't have $100? Those words struck Grace's heart. Once, $100 was just tip money for a valet. But now, for the love she had fought so hard for, $100 was a lifeline. "Sharon, the emergency cash I had in the envelope in the drawer. I checked yesterday and it's gone. That was the last of my money, just in case Leo got sick." Grace dared to ask, though she already knew the answer. Sharon scoffed and then smiled wryly. "Oh, that money in the brown envelope. I took it. I bought some new skin serums. It would be a shame if I looked haggard, my neighbors would talk. Besides, that's your husband's money too, which means it's my money too. It's my right." Grace's hands trembled with suppressed rage. That money was from selling her last pair of gold earrings, not from Ryan, but arguing with Sharon would be a waste of time. "So, you won't help?" Grace asked flatly. "It's not that I don't want to, it's that there's nothing to give. Just go. Walk to the community health center. It's free with state insurance, isn't it? Don't be so spoiled, thinking you can take a taxi everywhere." Sharon waved her hand, shooing Grace away like a fly. Grace didn't reply. She turned on her heel and walked out the door. On the porch, she tried her last resort. She took out her phone, its screen cracked in the top right corner. She opened her ride-sharing app, hoping for some leftover credit in her Venmo or Cash App. Balance, $2.50. She tried to book a car using the cash payment option, hoping she could borrow money from someone at the clinic or maybe leave her ID as collateral. But as soon as she hit the request button, a notification popped up. "Your cash payment option has been temporarily blocked due to repeated cancellations." Grace remembered that last week, Ryan had borrowed her phone to order food and then canceled it multiple times because he chose the wrong menu, causing her account to be penalized. Grace looked up at the sky, which was starting to drizzle again. There was no other choice. The clinic was about 2 miles away. She would have to walk to the main road and find a city bus. She held Leo tighter. "Be strong, sweetheart." "It's just us two fighting together," she whispered. Leo only whimpered softly, resting his hot head on Grace's chest. Grace stepped off the porch, leaving the house that felt like hell, and headed out into the cold street. The drizzle suddenly turned into a downpour within 10 minutes. Grace ran, looking for shelter. She found an old bus stop on the side of the main road. The shelter was in a sorry state. Its polycarbonate roof was cracked, its metal bench was rusted, and the floor was wet and muddy. Grace stood in the driest corner, trying her best to shield Leo from the splashing water. The thin jacket wrapped around Leo was already starting to feel damp. Grace took off her own cardigan and wrapped it around her son, leaving herself in just a short-sleeved t-shirt that was getting soaked by the spray. Cold. "Mommy," Leo mumbled, his teeth chattering. "I know, baby. The bus will be here soon. Just be patient, honey." Grace rubbed Leo's back, trying to transfer her own body heat, though she was starting to shiver too. 10 minutes passed, then 15. The rain grew wilder, accompanied by strong winds that turned pedestrians' umbrellas inside out. The main road in front of the bus stop was now choked with traffic. The sound of car horns blaring added to Grace's headache. A city bus appeared in the distance. Grace waved her hand enthusiastically. Hope bloomed in her chest. The bus slowed down, approaching the curb. Grace was ready to step forward, her foot in a worn-out flip-flop sinking into a puddle of brown water. But as the bus came parallel to her, the driver shouted through the closing doors, "Full up, lady! No more room!" The bus sped off again, splashing dirty water onto Grace's pants. Grace stood frozen. She looked inside the bus. It was crowded, but she was sure if they had a little compassion and shifted over, she and her son could have fit, but nobody cared. In this harsh city, poverty seemed to strip people of their empathy. Grace's tears fell again, this time mixing with the rain on her face. She felt so small, so worthless. Images of her past flashed in her mind. She never knew what it was like to wait for a bus. Her private driver would open the door to a fragrant, air-conditioned car, and she would sit comfortably, listening to music. She had left all that luxury for Ryan, for the man she thought was her one true love, a simple man who would love her for who she was. "I don't need any wealth, Dad. I just need Ryan," she had told her father 3 years ago before running away from home. How foolish she had been, how naive. Now, her one true love was sleeping soundly at home, while she and their child were stranded on the side of the road like homeless people. "God, please help me," Grace screamed internally. "If this is my punishment for defying my parents, please let it fall on me alone, not on my son." Leo started to cough, a dry, painful sound. Grace held him tighter, kissing her son's burning forehead. She didn't care about her pride anymore. If any car passed, she planned to knock on the window and beg for a ride. It was then, from the middle of the crawling traffic, that a gleaming black luxury car slowly pulled into the right lane, approaching the bus stop where Grace stood. It wasn't just any car, it was a brand new Rolls-Royce Phantom, a symbol of absolute power and wealth that stood in stark contrast to the decrepit bus stop and the motorcycles sheltering nearby. The car's body was so polished it reflected the dim streetlights, as if the rain itself refused to linger on its surface. Everyone at the bus stop, the street vendors, the employees finishing their night shifts, the students all turned to look. The sight of a multi-million-dollar car stopping at a dilapidated bus stop was an anomaly. They whispered amongst themselves, thinking maybe the car had broken down or taken a wrong turn. Grace took a step back, her instincts telling her to stay away. She felt ashamed. Her drenched appearance, her limp hair, and her pale face were completely out of place next to the opulence before her. She was afraid the owner might roll down the window and scold her for standing too close to the road. The car stopped right in front of Grace. Its engine was so smooth it was nearly silent, drowned out by the sound of the rain. The rear passenger door opened. A man in a discreet black suit swiftly got out, immediately opening a large black umbrella to shield him from the rain. No, he wasn't the owner. He was an aide. The aide then opened the passenger door with a practiced and respectful motion. A polished leather dress shoe stepped onto the wet asphalt. Then the figure emerged. The man was tall and imposing. He might have been in his late 50s, but his presence was commanding. He wore a bespoke dark gray suit that fit him perfectly. His hair, graying at the temples, was impeccably styled. His face was stern and resolute, but at this moment it betrayed a deep shock. It was Harrison Montgomery, Grace's father. Time seemed to stop for Grace. The sound of the rain, the honking cars, the hustle and bustle of the street all faded away. She could only hear her own heart, which felt like it was about to explode. "Dad," Grace whispered, her voice caught in her throat. Harrison Montgomery stared at his daughter. He saw the hair that was once styled at expensive salons, now limp and messy. He saw the face that once glowed, now gaunt and pale. He saw his grandson, his own flesh and blood, shivering in her arms in inadequate clothing. Harrison's jaw tightened. His eyes welled up, a mixture of longing, sadness, and an immense anger. He didn't care about the splashes of water dirtying his expensive trousers. He strode forward, approaching Grace. The aide quickly positioned the umbrella over him, now shielding Grace from the rain as well. Harrison didn't embrace her immediately. He looked straight into Grace's eyes, his gaze demanding an answer. His voice was deep and authoritative, yet it trembled with suppressed emotion. "What are you doing here, Grace?" Grace looked down, unable to meet her father's eyes. "Leo's sick, Dad. I'm trying to get to a doctor." Harrison's gaze shifted to the road and then back to his daughter's face. "On a bus. In a storm like this?" Grace nodded slowly, her tears falling again, mixing with the rain on her cheeks. Then came the question Grace dreaded most. "Where is the car I sent you last month?" "I sent a brand new Escalade specifically for you and my grandson, so he wouldn't have to suffer in the heat or the rain. My assistant said he handed the keys over to your husband. Where is the car?" Grace froze. Her tongue felt heavy. She remembered the lies Ryan and Sharon had forced her to tell her father over the phone, that the car was wonderful and comfortable when in fact she had never even touched it. "Grace, answer me." Harrison's voice rose, startling the people at the bus stop. "Where is that car?" Grace's sobs broke free. She couldn't bear the weight of this lie alone any longer. Her defenses crumbled before the man who had always been her hero. "It's been sold, Dad," she cried pitifully. "Ryan and my mother-in-law sold it behind my back. They said it was for a business investment, but—" Grace couldn't finish her sentence. Her body swayed. Harrison quickly caught his daughter's shoulders before she fell. The tycoon's hands gripped her tightly, as if to transfer his strength. "Enough," Harrison said shortly. One word, but its tone was as cold as ice. "Get in," Harrison commanded. There was no room for refusal in his voice. The aide immediately helped Grace into the warm and luxurious cabin of the Rolls-Royce. The interior was a soft cream color, and the scent of genuine leather and expensive cologne instantly assailed Grace's senses, reminding her of the life she had thrown away. Harrison sat beside her. The door closed, and the world outside went silent. The car's soundproofing was incredible, isolating them from the noise of the world. Harrison took a thick cashmere blanket that was always kept in his car and wrapped it around Grace and Leo. He touched his grandson's forehead. His stern face softened instantly as he looked at Leo's innocent, restless face. "He's burning up," Harrison murmured. He pressed the intercom button to speak to the driver. "To the hospital. Now, call the director of Montgomery Medical. Tell him my grandson is being admitted to the VIP wing. I want the best pediatric team waiting in the lobby." "Right away, sir," the driver replied. The car then pulled away smoothly, cutting through the traffic as if other cars moved aside out of pure deference. Grace leaned her head against the plush headrest. It felt like a dream. Just 5 minutes ago, she had felt like trash. Now she was sitting in the most comfortable vehicle in the world. "Explain everything," Harrison said without turning his head. He stared straight ahead, but his hands were clenched on his knees. "And no more hiding things. I knew you were lying all this time on the phone. You said you were happy. You said your husband was successful. Explain." Grace took a long, deep breath. In the warmth of the car, she began to tell him everything. She told him about Ryan, who turned out to be lazy and addicted to online gaming, about his promises of working hard that were nothing but empty words, about Sharon, her mother-in-law, who was obsessed with being a socialite despite having no money, and who constantly extorted money from Grace and Ryan. They said the car was too extravagant, that the maintenance costs were too high. Grace recounted in a hoarse voice. "My mother-in-law said it was better to sell it for capital to open a restaurant for Ryan. I believed them, Dad. I signed the sale papers because they forced me to. But it turns out..." "Turns out what?" Harrison pressed. Turns out the money was used to pay off Ryan's online gambling debts, and the rest was used by his mom to buy designer bags and go on vacation with her friends to the Bahamas last week. They told me the money was lost in a scam. A muscle twitched in Harrison's jaw. Veins stood out on his neck. He didn't shout. A man like Harrison Montgomery didn't need to shout to show his anger. His rage was calm, calculated, and deadly. They sold my grandson's safety for gambling and handbags, Harrison whispered, more to himself than to Grace. And you? Why did you stay silent? Why didn't you call me? I was ashamed, Dad. Grace's tears broke again. I was the one who insisted on marrying him. I was the one who defied you. I was ashamed to come home a failure. Harrison turned, looking at his daughter with deep compassion. He stroked Grace's hair, then Leo's. You were wrong, Grace. But your biggest mistake was letting yourself be trampled on by people with no self-respect. Harrison took a state-of-the-art smartphone from his suit pocket. He pressed a single speed dial number. The call connected on the first ring. Roger, he said curtly. The clear voice of Roger Vance, the lawyer and trusted right-hand man of the Montgomery family, came through the speaker. Yes, Mr. Montgomery. Your orders? I want you to run a full forensic audit on Ryan Gallagher and his mother Sharon. Right now. Check all their cash flow, debts, and assets, Harrison commanded coldly, his eyes staring out the window, piercing through the rain. Understood, sir. Is there a problem? Roger asked. They have awakened a sleeping tiger. Roger, Harrison replied, his tone making the hair on Grace's neck stand on end. Prepare an asset seizure team. Prepare the lawsuit. And make sure. Harrison paused for a moment. Make sure that within 24 hours, they don't have a roof over their heads. I want them to know what it feels like to be out in the rain that my daughter and grandson felt tonight. Understood, sir. I'm on it now, Roger replied briskly. The line went dead. Harrison took Grace's hand. His hand was warm and large, giving her a sense of security that had been missing from her life for 3 years. Rest now. From this moment on, no one can hurt you or Leo again. I'm taking over, Harrison said. Grace closed her eyes. For the first time in a very long time, she felt like she could breathe. Outside, the rain still raged, but the storm in her life was about to turn. Her father was back, and the reckoning had just begun. The black Rolls-Royce glided smoothly into the main lobby drop-off area of the Montgomery Medical Center. Before the wheels had even come to a complete stop, the glass doors of the lobby swung open. The hospital director, Dr. Bennett, along with a team of specialists and nurses, stood in a line, their faces tense but ready. They had received the call from Harrison's aide 5 minutes earlier. The owner's grandson was on his way, an emergency situation. As soon as the car door opened, Harrison stepped out first, his usually calm face now rigid. Without many words, he gestured for the driver to help Grace out. Grace, still clutching Leo in the cashmere blanket, looked unsteady. Her legs trembled as she stepped onto the cold marble floor of the lobby. Get a gurney, now, Dr. Bennett ordered firmly. 2 nurses swiftly pushed a modern gurney forward. Grace laid Leo on it. The little boy was still not fully conscious, his breathing heavy and rattling, as if fluid was obstructing his airway. I'm coming with him, Grace said, her voice hoarse. Her hand refused to let go of the gurney's railing. Mrs. Gallagher, please come with us. We're going directly to the VIP suite on the 12th floor. A private elevator is being held, Doctor, Bennett said with a level of respect that was a stark contrast to the treatment Grace usually received from receptionists at low-cost clinics. The group moved quickly. Harrison walked beside Grace, his arm around her shoulders, supporting her so she wouldn't collapse. They entered a private elevator with mahogany-paneled walls and mirrored glass. Inside, Harrison looked at his grandson, who was now fitted with an oxygen mask by a nurse. What's the preliminary diagnosis, Doctor? Harrison asked flatly. Doctor, Bennett checked a portable monitor attached to Leo. Based on the clinical symptoms, it's most likely acute bronchopneumonia, Mr. Montgomery. A lung infection, compounded by severe dehydration. And forgive me for being blunt, but it seems to have been going on for several days without adequate treatment. The phrase "without adequate treatment" hit Grace like a sledgehammer. She covered her mouth, stifling a sob. Guilt choked her once more. "I'm so sorry, Leo." "Mommy's so sorry," Grace whispered over and over. Harrison didn't blame Grace. He tightened his embrace. "Listen to me. This is not your fault. You did the best you could. The ones at fault are those who let this happen." The elevator doors opened on the 12th floor. This was the presidential suite level, an area typically reserved for high-ranking government officials or foreign dignitaries. The atmosphere was serene, with the faint scent of lavender aromatherapy in the air. The floor was covered in thick carpet that muffled every footstep. Leo was immediately taken into a treatment room larger than Ryan's entire apartment. Advanced medical equipment was quickly set up. An IV was inserted into his small, thin hand. Grace sat on a leather sofa next to the bed, her eyes never leaving her son. After the medical situation was under control and the doctors left to prepare medication, Harrison approached Grace. He held out his hand. "Your phone," Harrison requested. Grace looked up, confused. "What for, Dad? Give it to me. I'm confiscating it." Harrison's tone was non-negotiable. Hesitantly, Grace handed over her cracked phone. Harrison took it, turned it off, and gave it to the aide standing at the door. "Keep this. Buy Grace a new phone with a new number. Don't activate this old number until I say so." Harrison commanded the aide, then turned back to Grace. "Starting tonight, you are off their radar. Do not contact your husband. Do not contact your mother-in-law. But, Dad, what if Ryan looks for me? What if he's worried?" Grace asked, a remnant of her naivety still lingering. Harrison smiled cynically, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He pulled up a chair and sat facing his daughter. "Grace, listen to me carefully. If that husband of yours were a man, he would have been here hours ago. He would have called you 100 times. But look at your phone before I turned it off. 0 missed calls, 0 messages. He is not looking for you. He doesn't care if his wife and child come home or not, live or die." The words were cruel, but they were true. Grace fell silent. "We'll see," Harrison continued in a low, menacing voice. "How long it takes for your beloved husband to realize his wife and son are gone. I want to know if he'll search for you, or if he'll celebrate your departure." Outside the VIP room window, lightning flashed, illuminating the dark New York sky. Inside the room, Grace finally surrendered. She let go of her past, let go of her hope for Ryan, and placed her fate entirely in her father's hands. Meanwhile, in a small apartment on the outskirts of Queens, the atmosphere was relaxed, almost cheerful. The heavy rain outside didn't seem to bother the inhabitants. Sharon was sitting cross-legged on a cheap rug in the living room, surrounded by travel brochures. She held a calculator in one hand, and a cheap sheet mask she bought in bulk online was plastered to her face. "Ryan, this tour package to Cancun is a great deal, only $2,000 all in." "It's the low-season promo," Sharon said enthusiastically, her voice slightly muffled by the mask. Ryan Gallagher emerged from the bathroom with a towel wrapped around his waist. He had just taken a long, hot shower, using up the last of the hot water, and looked refreshed. He lit a cigarette and sat down next to his mother. "Cancun? I thought you wanted to go to Paris?" Ryan asked, blowing smoke into the small room. "Paris is expensive, sweetie. Half the money from the car sale is already gone, paying off your gambling debts and my club dues. If we go to Paris, we won't have any money left for shopping. Cancun is better. We can get pictures on the beach. And with the leftover money, I can buy a new knockoff designer bag to show off to Brenda." "She'll be so jealous," Sharon replied with a sly chuckle. Ryan nodded in agreement. For him, anywhere was fine, as long as he could flaunt it on social media. "All right, you handle it, Mom. Just book the tickets tomorrow." "I'm so bored of being stuck in this house." Suddenly, Ryan's stomach rumbled loudly. He looked around toward the dark kitchen. "Where the hell is Grace? It's getting late and she's still not back. I'm hungry." "She hasn't even made me any ramen," he grumbled. He glanced at the wall clock. 8 p.m. It had been nearly 12 hours since Grace had left. Sharon snorted, patting the remaining serum from the mask onto her face. "Oh, she's probably just sulking. The usual drama queen. She probably ran off to a friend's house or is hiding out in a church somewhere to get sympathy. Let her be. She'll come back when she's hungry. But Leo was really sick this morning. Is it okay for him to be out in this rain? Ryan asked, a tiny flicker of concern in his voice, not out of love, but out of fear of the hassle if his son got seriously ill. It's normal for kids to get sick, Ryan. It's building his immune system. You used to get fevers all the time. I'd give you some honey and lemon and you were fine, Sharon said dismissively, with no medical basis for her claim. Besides, that Grace is so dramatic, just because she was a rich kid. The slightest thing, and she wants to run to a doctor, always wanting expensive medicine. She has no grit. Ryan nodded, feeling his mother's words made sense. He picked up his phone and opened a food delivery app. All right, let's just order food. Pizza? There's a buy one get one promo. Yes. Get the meat lovers. Hey, can you still use Grace's credit card? Sharon asked greedily. Ryan tried to place the order. Let me check. Declined again. Damn it. The limit's probably maxed out, or the bank blocked it because we missed last month's payment. Ugh, useless wife. Leaving us with a maxed out credit card, Sharon sneered. Whatever, I'll just use the cash we have left. It's a shame. But what can we do? We can't starve because of her. They ordered their pizza, laughing as they discussed what outfits they would wear for their photos in Cancun. It never once crossed their minds that, at that very moment, Leo was struggling to breathe with the help of an oxygen machine, and Grace was crying in her father's arms. They felt victorious. They believed they had successfully exploited the foolish tycoon's daughter. They were oblivious that outside, the storm was not just bringing rain, but also an executioner who was taking aim at their necks. On the 30th floor of the towering Montgomery Tower in Midtown Manhattan, the lights in Roger Vance's office were still blazing. The view of the New York City skyline at night was breathtaking from the floor-to-ceiling windows, but Roger had no time to enjoy it. His expansive desk was covered with 3 glowing computer monitors, displaying rows of numbers, charts, and banking documents. Beside him, a cup of black coffee had gone cold, untouched. Roger Vance was more than just a corporate lawyer. He was a fixer, a problem solver for the Montgomery family. He worked with the precision of a machine, without emotion and without mercy. His task tonight was clear: to dissect the carcasses named Ryan and Sharon Gallagher down to the bone. Let's see just how dirty you two are, Roger murmured to himself. His fingers typed rapidly, accessing databases unreachable by the average person. As the legal counsel holding full power of attorney over assets registered in Grace's name, Roger had legal access to request bank statements. The first screen displayed Grace's bank statements for the past year. It was a sea of red. The monthly allowance from Grace's trust fund, which Harrison secretly continued to send even after she ran away, was drained within hours of each deposit. Outgoing transfer, $50,000 to Sharon Gallagher. Memo, catering business capital. Roger read the line with a cynical smile. He quickly checked the business licensing database. Nothing. There was no catering business registered under Sharon Gallagher's name. Fictitious. Then his eyes caught a larger, more suspicious transaction. Outgoing transfer, $5,000 to XPay Gateway. Memo, game voucher purchase. Roger shook his head. Ryan. 28 years old and still burning money on skins for virtual robots while your kid is starving? But his biggest discovery was on the third screen. It was the tracking result from the vehicle identification number of the Escalade Harrison had given them. Roger had already contacted his inside sources at the DMV. The vehicle's title had been transferred. The new owner, a used car dealership in Queens. The transaction date was just 4 days after the car was delivered from the official dealership to Grace's address. The selling price, $90,000, far below market value. They had sold it in a hurry, desperate for cash. Where did that $90,000 go? Roger traced the flow of funds from Ryan's account, which he had somehow managed to gain backdoor access to. The trail was clear and disgusting. $30,000 transferred to an online gambling site, SlotKings88. $25,000 to pay off credit cards in Sharon Gallagher's name, bills from high-end boutiques, beauty clinics, and 5-star hotels. $15,000 transferred to Sharon's personal savings account. The rest was withdrawn in cash in large, incremental amounts. Roger leaned back in his expensive ergonomic chair. He felt nauseous, not from the coffee, but from the human filth he was investigating. This wasn't just about money. This was embezzlement within a family, fraud, and child neglect. Roger's phone vibrated. A text from Harrison Montgomery came in. "Status?" Roger typed a reply swiftly. "Data complete, sir. Valid proof of embezzlement. Valid proof of online gambling. Vehicle sold 4 days after receipt at a steep discount. Money spent on gambling and his mother's lifestyle. I've prepared the asset freeze documents and a draft for the divorce filing. I can execute on-site tomorrow morning." Harrison's reply came instantly. "Good. Tomorrow morning, I want to see their faces when you arrive. But before that, I want to pay them a visit myself. Have my car ready at 9 a.m. We're going to see my in-laws." Roger smiled faintly. He closed his laptop. Tomorrow would be a long and bloody day, metaphorically speaking. He pictured Ryan and Sharon's faces. They were like rats dancing on a sinking ship, unaware that the captain had already given the order to open the floodgates. "Enjoy your last night in a comfortable bed," Roger whispered to the photo of Ryan displayed on his monitor before switching off the office lights. That morning, sunlight crept hesitantly into the densely populated neighborhood where they lived. The street in front of their apartment building was narrow, barely wide enough for one car, with an open gutter running alongside it. Neighborhood women were already gathered at a corner bodega, gossiping. Suddenly, the sound of a smooth yet powerful engine silenced the morning's activities. A long, black Rolls-Royce Phantom, followed by a black Toyota Land Cruiser SUV filled with security personnel, slowly navigated the narrow street. The neighbors gawked. The bodega owner stopped serving. Little kids ran after the car, which looked like a spaceship in the middle of their rundown block. "Whose car is that?" one woman whispered. "I don't know. Maybe some politician or a celebrity." The car stopped directly in front of the rusted iron gate of Ryan's apartment building. The chauffeur and an aide got out and opened the rear door of the Rolls-Royce. Harrison Montgomery emerged. He was wearing a silk designer shirt that probably cost enough to buy the entire apartment building. Behind him, Roger Vance stepped out of the SUV, carrying a thick leather briefcase and a red folder. Roger knocked on the apartment door, politely but firmly. "Knock, knock, knock." "Excuse me. Ryan Gallagher? Mrs. Sharon Gallagher?" Roger's voice was loud and clear. Inside, Sharon and Ryan had just woken up. They were startled by the commotion outside. "Who's making all that noise so early?" Ryan complained, stretching. "Go check, Ryan. If it's a debt collector, tell them I'm not here," Sharon ordered, combing her tangled hair. Ryan peeked through a gap in the window curtains. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Mom! Mom! You're not going to believe this. There's a Rolls-Royce out front. I think it's my father-in-law. It's Harrison Montgomery." Sharon leaped from her chair. Her panicked expression instantly morphed into one of greed. "What? Grace's dad? Seriously? Oh my God. He must be here to pick up Grace or give us more money. Ryan, look at me. Do I look okay? Is this outfit decent? You look fine, Mom. Hurry up and open the door." Sharon rushed to open the front door, putting on the sweetest, most practiced fake smile she could muster. "Mr. Montgomery, what a wonderful surprise!" "Please, please, come in," Sharon greeted with a feigned, cheerful tone, trying to ignore the cold stares from Harrison and Roger. Harrison didn't smile. He ignored Sharon's outstretched hand. He stepped into the small, cramped living room without removing his expensive shoes, as if unwilling to let them touch the floor of that house. Roger followed behind him, standing tall and silent like a guard. "Good morning, Sharon." "Ryan," Harrison said flatly, his eyes scanning the messy room. The pizza box from last night was still on the coffee table. Ryan's cigarette butts overflowed in an ashtray. A musty smell hung in the air. Ryan came out, hastily trying to straighten his shirt. "Dad, how are you, sir? I wasn't expecting you. Where's Grace? Isn't she with you?" Ryan looked around, pretending to search for his wife, though his heart was pounding with panic that Grace had told him everything. Harrison looked his son-in-law up and down, a gaze that made Ryan's courage wither instantly. "Grace is busy. I came here because I miss my grandson, Leo. I wanted to take him for a drive this morning," Harrison said calmly. "The weather is nice. Where's the car I gave you? I'd like to drive it with my grandson." The question hit Ryan and Sharon like a lightning bolt on a clear day. Their faces went pale simultaneously. They glanced at each other nervously. The car, sir." Ryan stammered, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Sharon quickly cut in, trying to salvage the situation with her usual lies. "Oh, the Escalade. Oh, what a shame, sir. The car is at the official service center. It was just in for a routine checkup, and they said a spare part needed to be replaced, so it has to stay for a few days." "You know how it is, sir. These high-tech cars have complicated maintenance." Sharon laughed awkwardly. "So it's not here right now." Harrison raised an eyebrow. "At the shop? A brand new car? Barely a month old? Already needs a spare part replaced?" "Yes, sir. You know how electronics are. Sometimes there's a factory defect," Ryan added quickly, supporting his mother's lie. "Once it's done, I'll drive it over to your house, Dad." Harrison nodded slowly, as if he believed them. "Oh, I see. What a pity. I brought a driver specifically to pick up the car today." He then looked at Ryan intently. "If the car is at the shop, where's the money?" Ryan froze. "Money? What money, sir?" "The money from selling it." Harrison's voice changed. It was no longer flat, but sharp and piercing. He didn't shout, but a murderous aura emanated from him. Sharon took a step back. "What do you mean, sir?" "We don't understand." Harrison gestured to Roger. Roger stepped forward and opened the red folder he was carrying. He took out a sheet of paper, a photocopy of a bank transfer, and the bill of sale for the car, signed by Ryan. He placed it on the pizza-stained coffee table. Cadillac Escalade, VIN number ending in 817, was sold on January 4th to Queens Auto World for $90,000. The money was wired to a Chase bank account in the name of Ryan Gallagher. Roger read the data in a monotonous tone, like an answering machine. And within 48 hours, $30,000 was transferred to an online gambling site, and $25,000 was used to pay off credit cards belonging to Mrs. Sharon Gallagher. Silence. A deafening silence fell over the room. Ryan trembled so violently his knees gave out. Sharon's face turned from pale to beet red with shame and fear. Their lies were laid bare before them. "Sir, that's a misunderstanding, sir," Ryan tried to deny, his voice high-pitched and hysterical. "My signature was forged. I never sold that car. It was Grace, sir. Grace told me to sell it. She said she needed the money to pay off her debts." Even at the end, Ryan tried to shift the blame to his wife. Harrison Montgomery laughed, a dry, short, terrifying laugh. "Enough!" Harrison cut him off. He stepped closer to Ryan. Ryan backed away until his back hit the wall. Harrison towered over his cowardly son-in-law. "Do you think I'm a fool, Ryan? Do you think I built my business empire by being easily tricked by a gambling-addicted brat like you?" Harrison turned to Sharon, who was now trembling in a corner. "And you, Sharon. You called Grace a useless daughter-in-law. You called her a parasite. You are the parasite. You sucked my daughter dry. You insulted her. You treated her like a maid, while you lived a life of luxury with my money. I'm her mother-in-law. It's only natural that she supports me." Sharon tried to defend herself with her twisted logic. "Your daughter is rich. She shouldn't be stingy with her family. Wealth is earned through hard work, not inherited by the lazy," Harrison retorted sharply. "Grace was willing to live a difficult life for your spineless son, but you both abused her patience, and what I can never forgive." Harrison's eyes glinted with furious tears. "You let my grandson, Leo, get gravely ill without medicine, while you ate pizza and planned a vacation to Cancun. Do you know where Leo is right now? He's in the ICU, fighting to breathe because of a lung infection that you ignored." Ryan's jaw dropped. "Leo's in the ICU? And you didn't know, did you, because you were too busy playing your games?" Harrison poked Ryan's chest with his finger, pressing hard. "Listen carefully. As of this moment, the war has begun." Harrison turned back to Roger. "Roger, read the main points." Roger nodded. "As per Mr. Harrison Montgomery's instructions, this apartment is an asset of the Montgomery Group, loaned under Grace Montgomery's name, as Mrs. Montgomery no longer resides here. The eviction notice is effective today. You have until tonight to vacate the premises." Divorce papers have been filed this morning on the grounds of financial abuse, child neglect, and embezzlement of assets. We will report the sale of the vehicle as a criminal act of embezzlement if the $90,000 is not returned within 48 hours. $90,000? Sharon shrieked. The money's gone, sir. We don't have that kind of money. That's your problem. Sell a kidney. Sell yourselves. I don't care, Roger said coldly. Harrison adjusted his shirt, as if brushing off some filth that had stuck to him after speaking with them. Enjoy your remaining time in this apartment. This evening, my security team will arrive to change the locks and dispose of any remaining belongings. Don't expect to take a single item that was purchased with Grace's money. That includes the clothes on your back. If they were bought with my daughter's credit card, take them off now. Harrison turned and walked out without looking back, his steps firm. Let's go, Roger. We have more important things to do than deal with trash. Ryan collapsed to the floor, wailing like a small child. Sharon chased Harrison to the gate, screaming hysterically. Mr. Montgomery, please don't be so cruel. We're family. Mr. Montgomery, forgive us. We made a mistake, sir. But the Rolls-Royce didn't stop. The tinted windows were closed tight, hiding Harrison's now impassive face. The car drove slowly away from the narrow street, leaving behind two greedy people whose world had just crumbled in a matter of minutes. Inside the car, Harrison took a long breath. He took out a wet wipe and cleaned his hands. Make sure Ryan's name is blacklisted at all of our associated companies, Roger. I want him to be unable to find a job, even as a janitor at any reputable company in this city, Harrison ordered. Already in process, sir, Roger replied. Our integrated HR system has flagged his social security number with a red flag. High-risk fraud. Harrison stared at the road ahead. The sky was beginning to clear. The rain had stopped. Now, to the hospital. I want to see my grandson wake up. The sun began to set, casting long shadows on the narrow street in front of the apartment building. It was 5 p.m., and the deadline Harrison Montgomery had given was almost up. Inside, the apartment was in chaos, but not because they were packing. The chaos was born of denial. Sharon was still sitting on the sofa, massaging her temples with a menthol stick, while Ryan paced back and forth like a broken machine, trying to call Grace for the 10th time. The number you have dialed is not in service or is outside the coverage area. Damn it! Ryan slammed his phone onto the sofa. Grace really turned her phone off. Mom, she's so cruel to us. Calm down, Ryan, Sharon said, her voice forcedly steady. They're just bluffing. Harrison wouldn't dare kick out his own in-laws. That's a human rights violation. If they show up, I'll scream. I'll make a viral video on TikTok about how the rich elite are oppressing the poor. Sharon had convinced herself of the victim narrative she had built in her own head. She believed the world would side with her, but reality didn't care about Sharon's feelings. At precisely 5:05 p.m., the sound of truck engines was heard. Not one, but two large yellow moving trucks stopped at the gate. Behind them, a white van unloaded 6 burly men in private security uniforms. These weren't regular building security. They were a professional asset recovery team. The team leader, a stern-faced man named Mr. Thompson, strode forward. The unlocked gate was pushed open easily. Good evening. As per the notice delivered this morning, your time is up, mister, Thompson said flatly, holding an official work order. Ryan ran onto the small porch, his face pale. Hey, what is this? You can't just barge in here. This is my home. I'll call the police. Please do, mister, Thompson replied calmly. The deed to this property is in the name of Montgomery Properties, Incorporated. You are occupying it on a loan basis, which has been revoked as of today. We are here to clear a company asset. Without waiting for Ryan's permission, Mr. Enetenrisi, Thompson gestured with his hand. The team moved. Haul out all company inventory. The occupants' personal belongings are to be collected on the curb. The 6 men swarmed into the apartment. Sharon shrieked hysterically as they began to lift the sofa she was sitting on. Hey, don't touch my sofa. That's an expensive sofa, she screamed. Check the inventory, Mr. Thompson ordered a team member holding a tablet. Faux leather sofa. Purchased 2024. Credit card. Grace Montgomery. Montgomery Group. Status. Company asset, the team member read aloud. Haul it out. The sofa was carried out. Sharon was dumbfounded. TV, double-door refrigerator? Another member asked. Purchased via wire transfer. Account of Grace Montgomery. Company assets. Haul them. One by one, the items in the house were stripped away. The 50-inch television Ryan used for his PlayStation, the refrigerator full of food, even the portable air conditioner in the bedroom, all of it, it turned out, had been bought with Grace's money. "This is robbery!" Ryan shouted, trying to block their path as they carried out a wardrobe. "My clothes are in there!" Mr. Thompson blocked Ryan's chest with one hand. A gentle but firm push sent Ryan stumbling backward. "You may take your clothes. The wardrobe belongs to the company. We'll give you 10 minutes to empty its contents onto the floor, or we will haul it out with everything inside." Ryan and Sharon panicked. They ran to their rooms, pulling out piles of clothes and throwing them haphazardly onto the dirty porch floor. Ryan's work desk, Sharon's dresses, underwear, everything piled up like a mountain of rags. Within an hour, the apartment was empty, swept clean. All that remained were Ryan, Sharon, and a pile of clothes and small personal items, cosmetics, plastic plates, a cheap rice cooker scattered on the curb. The neighbors watched from behind their fences with mixed expressions. Some felt pity, but most were glad. Sharon was known for her arrogance and for being late with her share of the utility bills. "We've changed the locks," Mr. Thompson said, closing and locking the main door. He handed a brown envelope to Ryan. "This is an invoice for damages to the walls and soiled floors. Management awaits payment." The trucks drove away, leaving a cloud of dust. The sky began to darken. Ryan and Sharon stood on the curb of the home that was no longer theirs, surrounded by belongings they had no idea where to take. "Where are we going to sleep tonight, Mom?" Ryan's voice trembled, on the verge of tears. Sharon stared blankly at her pile of clothes, her pride completely shattered in front of the neighbors. We'll go to a hotel. Find a cheap hotel around here. Call an Uber, Ryan. Quickly, before it starts raining again." The next day, the sun beat down relentlessly, as if mocking their fate. Ryan and Sharon had stayed in a budget motel, the kind that charges $50 a night. The room was small, smelled of stale cigarettes, and the sheets felt itchy. Sharon woke up a mess, but her ego refused to die. She showered, applied thick makeup to hide her dark circles, and put on one of the best outfits she had managed to save. "Where are you going?" Ryan asked. He was still lying in bed, staring at the moldy ceiling. "I have my luncheon at 11 at the plaza," Sharon answered, primping in a cracked mirror. "I can't miss it. If I don't show up, they'll suspect we're in trouble. I have to maintain appearances. Who knows? Maybe I can borrow some money from Jennifer or Linda." "Mom, get a grip." "We're homeless," Ryan groaned. "Shut up, you." "This is strategy. We need connections to get back on our feet," Sharon snapped. "You should go to work. Show your face at the office. Don't get fired, too. If you lose your job, we're really finished." Ryan sighed, realizing his mother had a point. He got ready and left for work, while Sharon ordered an Uber to one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. Upon arriving at the opulent restaurant where the luncheon was held, Sharon put on her best mask. "Hello, darlings. So sorry I'm a bit late. The traffic was just dreadful. My driver is new," she lied smoothly as she air-kissed her friends. They ate and laughed, discussing the latest Hermes bags and trips to Europe. Sharon laughed along, though her stomach churned at the thought of the coming bill. She ordered a Wagyu steak and an iced lychee tea, trying to enjoy one last taste of luxury. When it was time to pay, the waiter arrived with a credit card machine. "Today is Mrs. Gallagher's treat, right?" "You won the pot last month," Linda chimed in. "Oh, of course," Sharon answered confidently. She thought the supplementary card from Grace might still work. It had a high limit, and yesterday's events were probably just about physical assets. She prayed that Harrison Montgomery had forgotten to block this card. Sharon presented the platinum card with an elegant flair. The waiter swiped it. "Beep." The waiter frowned and tried again. "Beep." "I'm sorry, ma'am." The card was declined, the waiter said politely, but loud enough for the whole table to hear. Sharon's face flushed. "Really? Try it again. Maybe the signal is bad. The waiter tried again. Still no, ma'am. The message says, pickup card. The card must be retained by the merchant on the bank's instruction. What? Retained? That's my card. Sharon started to panic. Do you have another card, ma'am? The waiter asked. Sharon fumbled in her wallet. She pulled out her personal debit card, which held the last of the money from the car sale. She prayed it was enough. Beep. Approved. Sharon breathed a sigh of relief. But when the receipt printed, she saw the remaining balance displayed at the bottom, $150. The lunch had cost over $3,000. Her money was gone. Wiped out. Her friends exchanged glances. Sharon's wealthy aura crumbled instantly. Sharon, darling, what's wrong with your card? I thought Grace's husband was in the energy business, Jennifer asked with a probing tone. Oh, it's nothing. The limit is so high the bank protects it for security, Sharon bluffed, cold sweat drenching her back. Suddenly, Linda's phone buzzed. She read a text message, and her eyes widened as she looked at Sharon. Oh my God, girls, there's gossip going around. It says your son's apartment was raided by Montgomery Group security yesterday. They say all the furniture was thrown out. Sharon froze. The news had spread faster than fire. That's a lie. Slander, Sharon denied. Really? Because there's a picture. A picture of you sitting on a pile of clothes on the curb. Linda showed her the phone screen. The photo was unmistakably clear. Sharon, disheveled, in front of an empty apartment. The atmosphere at the table turned icy. The gazes that were once friendly turned to ones of disgust. For their social circle, poverty was a contagious disease. Oh, you know what? I have to go pick up my son from school, Linda said abruptly, standing up. I have a meeting too, Jennifer added, also rising. One by one they left, leaving Sharon alone at the table in the lavish restaurant. No goodbyes, no air kisses. Sharon was abandoned like trash. She sat there, stunned, staring at the half-eaten Wagyu steak, realizing her stage play had completely collapsed. She had no money to even get home. At the same time, Ryan's fate was no better. He worked as a marketing supervisor at a large auto financing company. It wasn't owned by the Montgomery Group, so Ryan felt safe. He walked into the office with his head down, hoping no one knew about his domestic problems. But as soon as he entered the lobby, the receptionist gave him a strange look. Security guards whispered to each other. Ryan tried to ignore it and headed for the elevator. When he got to his cubicle, his computer wouldn't log in. Access denied. What's wrong with this thing? Server error? Ryan grumbled. Suddenly, his manager, Mr. Davis, approached, his face tense. Ryan, you're wanted in HR. Now. Bring your things with you, Mr. Davis said without any preamble. Ryan's heart sank. Bring my things, sir? What do you mean? Don't ask questions. Just go. Ryan walked numbly toward the HR department. Inside the cold glass office, Miss Miller, the HR manager, was sitting with someone from the company's legal department. On the table was a red folder, similar to the one Roger Vance had carried. Please have a seat, Mr. Gallagher, Miss Miller said formally. No friendly Ryan, no usual warmth. What's going on, ma'am? My computer won't log in, Ryan asked nervously. We received a compliance audit report this morning, miss, Miller began, opening the folder. We found evidence that you have been engaged in extensive online gambling activities using company network facilities during work hours. Furthermore, your name has appeared on a National Financing Association blacklist for suspected involvement in the embezzlement of a luxury vehicle, a Cadillac Escalade, VIN ending in 817. Ryan was flabbergasted. That's my personal business, ma'am. It has nothing to do with the company. It has everything to do with it, Ryan, the legal counsel interjected. Our company operates in the financial sector, built on trust. An employee proven to be gambling and embezzling assets lacks the integrity to work here. This is a severe breach of your employment agreement. But, ma'am, please, just give me a warning. A written warning or something, Ryan pleaded. I really need this job. My wife just left me. Miss Miller looked at him coldly. The influence of Harrison Montgomery's network was clearly working effectively behind the scenes. In the upper echelons of the corporate world, one phone call from Harrison could end a career forever. This isn't a warning, Ryan. This is a termination of employment for cause. Gross misconduct. You are being terminated, effective immediately, without severance. Miss Miller pushed a letter toward him. Sign here. Ryan's hand trembled as he held the pen. Without severance? And without this month's pay, which will be docked to cover the cost of company internet usage for your gambling. The reason was flimsy, but legally sound. And one more thing, the legal counsel added after Ryan signed. Because you are being terminated for cause, your letter of reference will state a breach of integrity as the reason for dismissal. Good luck finding another job. 2 security guards entered and escorted Ryan out of the HR office, past the rows of desks where his colleagues stared at him with contempt. Ryan was walked to the building's exit. His ID badge was confiscated, and he was left on the hot pavement under the blazing New York sun. Ryan loosened his tie, which felt like it was choking him. He was unemployed. His reputation was ruined. He had no money. Suddenly, 2 men in leather jackets approached him in the employee parking lot, where Ryan's prized 250cc sport motorcycle was parked, his only remaining valuable asset. Afternoon. Ryan Gallagher? One man asked. Yeah, who are you? We're external collectors from XYZ Financing. This motorcycle is 3 months behind on payments. We have instructions for repossession today. Hey, you can't do that. I just got fired, now you're taking my bike? Ryan raged. Sorry, sir. The account's been red flagged. Where are the keys? Ryan tried to fight them off, but he was overpowered. The keys were snatched from his hand. Within minutes, his beloved motorcycle was driven away. Ryan stood alone on the sidewalk, holding a now useless helmet. He roared in anger, kicking a trash can until its contents spilled onto the street. Passers-by stared at him with fear. Ryan Gallagher, the man who just yesterday felt on top of the world, was now completely broken on the asphalt. That night was the worst of Ryan and Sharon's lives. Their money was almost gone. The motel they stayed in last night was now too expensive. They met at a greasy fried chicken joint on a street corner. Ryan wore a wrinkled shirt. Sharon wore a fancy dress, now stained with hot sauce. Their faces were equally grim. Where have you been? I've been calling you, Ryan snapped, devouring his meal ravenously, having not eaten all day. My phone's dead. Ran out of minutes, ran out of data. No free Wi-Fi, Sharon replied listlessly. My debit card has $150 left. How much do you have? Ryan checked his pockets, pulling out some change and 2 $20 bills. $40. My wallet's empty. No severance. Silence. Their total net worth was $190. Enough for food for a couple of days, but not enough to rent a decent place. We can't stay in a hotel anymore, Ryan said desperately. We need to find a cheap room for rent. Something we can pay for by the day if we have to. A room for rent? I'm not living in some dump, Ryan. They have roaches, Sharon protested. Wake up, Mom, wake up! Ryan slammed his hand on the plastic table, spilling sauce. We are poor. P-O-O-R. Stop acting like you're still rich. Grace is gone. Harrison Montgomery has cut us off. There are enemies now. Other patrons stared. Sharon shrank back, finally realizing the true horror of their situation. That night, they found a single, empty room in a tenement building in a rough part of the Bronx. A room about 10 by 10 feet, with a shared bathroom down the hall, plywood walls, and a tin roof. The rent was $300 a month. They begged the landlord and paid a $100 deposit. As soon as they entered, the oppressive heat hit them. No AC, no fan. Just a thin foam mattress on the floor that smelled of the previous tenant's sweat. Mosquitoes buzzed like an orchestra of death. Sharon sat in a corner, clutching her designer bag, which might be fake or real, but had no value here. She began to cry. This is all your fault, Ryan, Sharon sobbed. If you hadn't gambled, if you hadn't been so cruel to Grace, we'd still be living comfortably in an air-conditioned home. My fault? Ryan shot back, refusing to be blamed. You're the one who was obsessed with shopping. You're the one who pushed me to sell the car. You're the one who insulted Grace until she couldn't stand it anymore. If you had been even a little bit nice to her, maybe she wouldn't have run to her father. You ungrateful child. How dare you blame your own mother? Sharon threw a musty pillow at Ryan's face. You money-grubbing witch, Ryan retorted. A vicious fight erupted in the tiny room. They hurled insults, blamed each other, and exposed each other's ugliest secrets. Their voices carried through the thin walls, prompting a neighbor to bang on their wall. Hey, shut up in there! People are trying to sleep! They fell silent, panting in the heat and darkness. Sweat dripped down their faces, stomachs still empty, hearts full of hate. The bond between mother and son was fractured, shattered by the poverty they had created for themselves. 3 days later, news of Harrison Montgomery's grandson's recovery appeared on a celebrity gossip blog. Though the mother and child's faces were blurred, Ryan saw the post on his cracked phone screen at a coffee shop where he was loitering because his room was too hot. The caption read, "Tycoon's grandson recovers, ready to go home to a lavish mansion." The definition of a true prince. Ryan's eyes lit up, not because he was happy his son was better, but because he saw an opportunity. If Leo is recovered, that means Grace is at the hospital. If I can just see Grace, I can apologize. I can get on my knees and beg. Grace has a soft heart. If I cry, she'll give in. At the very least, she'll give me enough money to rent a better place, Ryan's devious mind plotted. With the last of his money, Ryan took an Uber to Montgomery Medical Center. He wore his best shirt, now slightly wrinkled from being used as a pillow. When he reached the lobby, he was immediately stopped at the entrance. The security team had already memorized his face. "Sorry, Mr. Gallagher. You are not permitted on hospital grounds," said the head of security, a man twice Ryan's size. "I'm here to see my son, Leo. I'm his father. You have no right to keep a father from his child." Ryan shouted, trying to create a scene to garner sympathy. "Direct orders from the owner of the hospital. You are considered a threat to a patient," the security guard replied flatly. A small scuffle ensued. Ryan tried to push past them but was easily restrained and dragged out of the lobby. As Ryan was being hauled across the parking lot, a new, white Cadillac Escalade pulled up to the entrance. The door opened. Harrison Montgomery stepped out, followed by Grace, who was holding Leo. Leo looked healthy and cheerful, laughing as he held an expensive new toy robot. Grace looked stunning. Her skin glowed, and she was wearing an elegant designer dress. The aura of poverty and suffering had been completely erased from her face. "Grace! Grace!" Ryan yelled from a distance, struggling against the guard's grip. "Grace! It's me, honey! I'm so sorry! Grace, look at me!" Grace turned her head. She saw the thin, disheveled, pathetic man screaming her name, the man she once adored. Harrison Montgomery whispered to his daughter, "Do you want to speak to him?" Grace looked at Ryan for 3 seconds. Her gaze was empty. No hatred, no love. Just the kind of detachment one feels when looking at a stranger. She shook her head slowly. "No need, Dad. You don't have to greet strangers." Grace got into the car. Harrison smiled proudly and followed her. The Escalade's door closed. Ryan went limp. He fell to his knees on the hot asphalt. The car drove past him without a second glance. Leo waved from the back window, but not at Ryan. He was waving at the balloons in the hospital's garden. Ryan was no longer recognizable to his own son. The security guards released him. "Get out of here. Don't come back unless you want to end up in a cell." Ryan stared at the exhaust fumes from the car that carried his future away. Regret slammed into his chest, suffocating him. But it was useless. The door to paradise, once wide open for him, had been locked by his own hand, and he had broken the key. He staggered to his feet and walked out of the hospital grounds, back towards his own personal hell in the Bronx, where his nagging mother and mounting debts awaited. A week after the incident at the hospital, life for Ryan and Sharon in the tenement apartment became even more inhumane. The little money they had was gone. They survived by splitting a single packet of instant ramen between them, with no egg, no vegetables. The electricity in their room was on a prepaid meter, and it was now beeping loudly, a signal that the power was about to run out. Darkness threatened them tonight. Ryan was sitting on the grimy front stoop, staring into the polluted air, when a neatly dressed courier arrived on a clean scooter that looked out of place in the squalid neighborhood. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Ryan Gallagher?" the courier asked, polite but firm. Ryan looked up, his eyes sunken from lack of sleep and nutrition. "Yeah, that's me. What is it? Another bill?" The courier didn't answer, simply handing him a thick brown envelope with the seal of the New York Family Court and another with the logo of Vance and Partners law firm. "Please sign here to confirm receipt." Ryan signed with a trembling hand. After the courier left, Ryan opened the envelopes, his heart pounding. Sharon, who had been fanning herself inside the sweltering room, came out when she heard the scooter leave. "What is it, Ryan? A government assistance check?" she asked hopefully. Ryan read the title of the first document. His knees buckled. Summons to appear. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Attached was a 20-page copy of the divorce petition, meticulously drafted by Roger Vance's team. It was no joke. The petition detailed every one of Ryan's sins: financial neglect, verbal abuse, and allowing his child to become critically ill. But what made Ryan collapse onto the stoop was the second envelope. It was a final legal notice. The contents were brief and brutal. "Our client, Mr. Harrison Montgomery, demands the return of funds from the sale of the Cadillac Escalade, VIN ending in 817, in the amount of $90,000 within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in the submission of evidence of embezzlement to the district attorney's office, and Mr. Ryan Gallagher will face multiple felony charges, with a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison." "Prison!" Ryan gasped, his face ashen. "Mom, they're going to put me in prison." Sharon snatched the papers and read them quickly, her eyes widening in horror. "This is insane! That Harrison Montgomery is crazy. He's going to send his own son-in-law to prison? This is a domestic dispute, not a criminal case." "Because the car was registered to the company." "Mom! Legally, I sold a corporate asset," Ryan yelled in frustration. "This is because of you. You're the one who told me to sell it quickly. Now I'm the one who's going to rot in jail. Don't you dare blame me. You're the one who enjoyed the money for your stupid online slots." Sharon threw the papers in Ryan's face. "And what kind of man are you? You whine at the first sign of trouble. Fight it. Hire a lawyer. With what money, Mom? With leaves?" Ryan laughed hysterically, the laugh of a man who had lost his sanity. "We can barely afford to eat. What lawyer is going to defend a broke loser against the Montgomery Group? We're finished, Mom. We're finished." That afternoon, in the grimy Bronx neighborhood, Ryan realized that a prison cell might be more luxurious than his current life. At least there, he would get free meals. But the thought of being a convict made him want to vomit with fear. That night, the power finally went out. The prepaid meter was empty. The room was plunged into total darkness, illuminated only by the faint moonlight filtering through a vent and distant streetlights. Mosquitoes feasted on their skin. Hunger, heat, and the fear of prison became the fuel that would ignite the mother and son's emotions. "Ugh, it's so hot. Ryan, don't you have any spare change to buy a few dollars worth of power?" Sharon whined, slapping a mosquito on her cheek. "No, Mom. I spent the last of it on cigarettes this afternoon," Ryan answered curtly from his corner of the room. "Cigarettes. Always cigarettes." "Your brain is nothing but smoke," Sharon snapped. "If you had been a little smarter when you married Grace, you would have had her put the house deed in your name or asked for shares in the company. You're a stupid man. You were given a golden opportunity, and you wasted it." Ryan's patience snapped. "Shut up!" He screamed into the darkness, his voice booming so loudly it startled the rats in the ceiling. "You're the stupid one. You're the greedy one." Ryan stood up, pointing at his mother's vague silhouette. "From the very beginning, when I was dating Grace, you were the one always whispering in my ear, 'Use her for her money. Use her for her money.' I actually loved Grace, Mom. I loved her, but you're the one who poisoned my mind until I saw her as nothing but a walking ATM. Watch your mouth." Sharon stood up, refusing to back down. "I did that for our own good. We're poor people, Ryan. An opportunity to marry into a tycoon's family comes once in a lifetime. You were just too weak to control your own wife. A wife should be afraid of her husband, not run crying to her father. Grace wouldn't have run to him if you weren't so cruel to her, Ryan shot back. Remember when she was pregnant? You made her scrub the floors by hand even though you had a maid, saying it would make for an easy delivery, but you just wanted to torture her. You were jealous because she was young and rich. Slap! A hard slap landed on Ryan's cheek. Sharon was breathing heavily, her right hand stinging. You ungrateful brat! How dare you say I was jealous? Ryan held his cheek. Something inside him broke. Any remaining respect for his mother vanished. Fine, Ryan said coldly. If you think you're so right, then you can take care of yourself from now on. I don't care anymore. Ryan grabbed his jacket and walked out the door. Where are you going? Don't leave me here alone in the dark. Sharon shrieked in panic, her fear of darkness and loneliness surfacing. I'm going to sleep on a park bench. It's more peaceful than being with a monster like you, Ryan answered without looking back. That night, Sharon cried alone in the small, hot room, accompanied by darkness and a regret that came too late. She realized she had lost the only person who was still with her. Her ambition for wealth had consumed her own son. A month later, the day of the final court hearing arrived. The family court building was busy that morning, but the atmosphere suddenly quieted as a convoy of luxury cars pulled up to the entrance. Harrison Montgomery wasn't taking any chances. He had brought a security team to ensure Grace felt safe and comfortable. Grace stepped out of the car wearing an elegant cream-colored silk dress, her hair in a modern updo, her face hidden behind large sunglasses. Roger Vance walked beside her, carrying a briefcase. Harrison walked on her other side, holding his daughter's hand tightly. They looked like an untouchable royal family. In a corner of the waiting area, Ryan sat alone. He looked pathetic. His white shirt was yellowed at the collar, and his pants were loose because he had lost so much weight. He looked 10 years older. Sharon was not with him. She was busy hiding from loan sharks. When the clerk called their case number, Ryan stood up, his knees trembling. Inside the courtroom, the disparity was stark. At the petitioner's table, Grace was flanked by 3 top lawyers from Roger's firm. At the respondent's table, Ryan sat alone, without a lawyer, armed only with a certificate of indigence he had struggled to obtain. The judge read the legal considerations. The facts from the previous hearings were overwhelmingly clear. Evidence of gambling transactions, the car sale, and medical records of child neglect were the nails in the coffin of Ryan's defense. The judge's voice echoed through the room. The court grants the petitioner's request in its entirety. A final judgment of dissolution of marriage is hereby entered. Full legal and physical custody of the minor child, Leo, is awarded to the petitioner, Grace Montgomery. The respondent is ordered to pay spousal and child support, totaling $100,000. $100,000. The gavel struck. Bang! Ryan slumped in his chair. Shiwen Meiyuan. He had to panhandle just to eat. After the hearing was adjourned, Ryan tried to approach Grace before she left the courtroom. The bodyguards immediately formed a barrier, but Grace raised her hand, signaling for them to step aside for a moment. She took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were clear, no longer filled with tears. She looked at Ryan with pity, the way one looks at a mangy stray cat. "Grace," Ryan's voice croaked, "I'm so sorry. Can I see Leo? Just once. Before whatever happens to me." Grace took a deep breath. "You know, Ryan, I used to think I couldn't live without you. But for the past month, Leo and I have slept soundly every night. He never asks about you. He's forgotten." The words stabbed Ryan's heart. As for the criminal embezzlement charges, Grace continued flatly, "My father has agreed to drop them, for Leo's sake. He doesn't want Leo to grow up with the stigma of having a father who was a convict." "So, you're free from prison?" Ryan's eyes lit up slightly. "Really, Grace? Thank you. Thank you so much." "But," Grace cut him off sharply, "never show your face to us again. Never look for Leo. If you come within 100 yards of us, Roger will reactivate the case that same second. And the $100,000 judgment. I'm considering it paid in full. Think of it as a charitable donation, the last dollar you'll ever get from me." Grace put her sunglasses back on. Goodbye, Ryan. I hope you learn how to be a human being." She turned and walked away, the click of her heels echoing decisively on the marble floor. Ryan stood frozen. He was saved from prison, but he had lost everything. He was set free only because he was deemed too pathetic to punish. It was the greatest humiliation, but also his final blessing. While Ryan faced his ruin in court, Sharon was facing her own hell in a grimy, wet market on the edge of the city. She could no longer stay in the tenement room. The landlord had kicked her out after Ryan disappeared, and the rent went unpaid. Now, Sharon was sleeping in the back storage room of a Greasy Spoon diner, on the condition that she worked there. The former socialite who once recoiled at the thought of touching a sponge now sat on a low stool, facing a mountain of dirty dishes. Her hands, which used to get regular manicures, were now chapped, raw, and broken from the harsh dish soap. "Sharon, scrub those greasy plates properly. Stop being lazy," yelled the diner's owner, a large, aggressive woman. "Yes, ma'am. I'm scrubbing," Sharon answered meekly, holding back the sting in her heart. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the front of the diner. Two tattooed, menacing-looking men walked in, their eyes scanning the room. They were debt collectors from an illegal loan app Sharon had used to fund her lifestyle last month. Sharon panicked. She tried to hide behind a stack of soda crates, but it was too late. "There she is! Mrs. Sharon Gallagher!" One of the thugs pointed. They dragged Sharon out into the open. "Pay your debt. You're 2 months overdue. The interest has compounded, you know. Please, sir, I don't have any money yet." "I just started working," Sharon begged, crying in front of everyone. The market-goers gathered to watch. "Oh yeah? On social media, you acted like a queen, showing off your bags, your fancy meals. Now you can't even pay back a few $1,000s?" The thug yelled, shoving Sharon's head. Among the crowd of onlookers, an SUV was stopped in the traffic. The back window was slightly open. Inside sat Linda and Jennifer, Sharon's former luncheon friends. They were on their way back from visiting a factory owned by Linda's husband. "Hey, Jen, isn't that Sharon?" Linda whispered, shocked to see the disheveled woman being harassed by thugs. Jennifer squinted, then covered her nose with a silk handkerchief. "Ugh, you're right. Oh my God, how pathetic. She looks so dirty." Karma really is instant, isn't it? Take a picture, Jen. Take a picture. Post it in the group chat. Let it be a lesson to everyone, Linda said sadistically. They snapped a photo of Sharon kneeling at the thug's feet. Then their car drove on. The photo spread in minutes, becoming the laughingstock of their entire social circle. Sharon's name was utterly destroyed. There was no place left for her to be proud. The thugs left her with a final threat. "We'll be back tomorrow. If you don't have the money, we're taking you to the police." Sharon knelt on the muddy market ground, her tears dry. She remembered Grace's face, the daughter-in-law she had always insulted and ordered around. She once had a daughter-in-law who gave her a limitless credit card, a comfortable home, and respect. She had thrown away a diamond for a kernel of corn, and now she didn't even have the corn. 6 months later, the morning sky over New York was exceptionally bright, a clean, pollution-free blue, as if celebrating a new freedom. In a lush city park, Grace sat on a bench reading a business magazine. She was now involved in managing one of her father's boutiques. She looked chic and professional, her girl boss aura beginning to shine through an inheritance from Harrison Montgomery's bloodline. In front of her, Leo ran chasing a ball, laughing freely. The boy was growing up healthy and happy, surrounded by the love of his grandfather and his extended family. The trauma of his past was slowly fading. A sleek, metallic blue Porsche Macan was parked nearby, Grace's new car, a symbol of her independence. "Mommy, look! Leo kicked the ball!" Leo shouted cheerfully. "Wow, a future soccer star!" Grace praised, clapping her hands. Harrison Montgomery approached, carrying 2 cups of gelato. He sat down next to his daughter. The old man's face looked peaceful. The worry lines that had etched his face when Grace ran away were now gone. "How's the boutique? Business good?" he asked. "It's great, Dad. Sales are up 20% this quarter. I'm thinking of expanding, starting my own children's clothing line," Grace answered enthusiastically. Harrison smiled with pride. "Do it. I'll back you with the capital. But remember, business is run with your head, not just your heart. Yes, sir, Grace laughed. After they finished playing, they prepared to go home. Grace drove her own car, with Harrison in the passenger seat and Leo in his car seat in the back. They drove along a major city avenue. At a busy intersection, Grace's car stopped at the front of a red light. To their left, an old, beat-up van was parked at a bus stop, its engine spewing black exhaust. Grace glanced over. At the back of the van, a busboy was hauling a large, overflowing bag of trash toward a dumpster. He was thin, his skin tanned and weathered, his hair long and unkempt. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with a dirty sleeve. As he turned his head, his eyes met Grace's through the closed window of her luxury car. It was Ryan. Time seemed to slow for a second. Ryan recognized the car. Ryan recognized the beautiful face inside. His mouth fell slightly open, his eyes filled with a mixture of longing and profound shame. He wanted to raise his hand, to call out, but his voice was caught in his throat. The class divide between them was now as wide as an ocean. He was street dust, and she was a star in the sky. Grace looked at him without expression. There was no longer a flicker of love, no longer the ache of heartbreak. To her, Ryan was just a part of a past that was over. An expensive life lesson. The traffic light turned green. Grace pressed the accelerator. The Porsche glided forward smoothly, leaving the trash-hauling busboy frozen in a cloud of exhaust. Grace didn't look back. She stared at the straight road ahead. A bright future awaited her and Leo. Who was that, Grace? He looked familiar, Harrison asked, having caught a glimpse but not being sure. Grace smiled faintly and shook her head. Nobody, Dad. Just a stranger who took a wrong turn in life. Grace turned on the music in her car. A happy song filled the cabin. The storm had passed, and now her father's umbrella was no longer needed to shield her from tears, but to shade her as she enjoyed the beauty of her life.